Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel My Project Ideas. In this tutorial, we will see how to create a UI5 application with table export to Excel using spreadsheet library. So let's create a new project. I will create a Fury application, freestyle. For the data source, I will be using Northwind data source. So let's select connect to an OData service and let's copy this Northwind OData service. We will remove this metadata. Let's wait for the project to generate. Okay, so now our project has been generated. Let's run this project. To run this application, let's click on preview application, start, no FLP. Okay, so our application has successfully run. So let's start creating a table. Remove this. Within this content, we will create a table. We have the table tag. We have the table control. We'll give this table an ID. Let's bind some items. We will use customers. We will use customers entity set. Let's see what are the properties of customers. So we have these properties for particular customer entity set. Let's start creating the columns. We create four columns. First one with the company name, then we'll have contact name. Let's copy this. Then we'll have, let's take address. And then finally, let's take phone. Okay, now that we have a column, let's create the items. Let's find the proper properties. Now let's check our table is properly loaded. Let's refresh this. So now that our table is loaded properly, let's move on to the next step. That would be to create a export to Excel button in the table header. Let's create a table header. We'll create a overflow toolbar in the header. Let's give a title. Customers. Let's give level as H2. Then we'll have a toolbar spacer. Then we create a button. Button will have the text export to Excel. And then we'll give it an icon. I will give it as SAP icon Excel attachment. Okay, let's check it out. So we have a button, export to Excel. Looks good. Let's move on to the next step where on click of this button, we want this data to be exported in Excel format, which is XLSX. So let's write a function here. Export table will be a function name. Now let's open a controller. We don't need on init. We'll directly have this function. Okay. Okay. So first of all, we need two libraries to make this work. One of which is SAP UI export library, and the other one is SAP UI export spreadsheet. These two libraries you will require. Let's export them as well. Give them a namespace. Let's take a table. We will give table ID, that is export table. Okay. We will take the row binding for this table, which will be o table dot get binding items. Now that we have a binding, we need the column headers for our export to Excel sheet. So to get the columns, let's create another function. We'll name this function as create column, and we'll put the column creation configuration in this. Let's create an array, and then we will push our headers one by one. So the headers, so the array will contain objects in the array, and each objects will have some properties, such as first one is label. This is the first column label, and then will come the property. Property is the OData property that you will use. So our OData property is company name. So let's put it as company name. And you can also specify a type, which would be EDM type dot string. We'll have to declare this EDM type. So let's write EDM type equal to export library dot EDM type. This will declare our EDM type, which we can use it here. We have 4 columns, so we'll need to write this 4 times with each label name. Contact, address, and lastly, phone. Okay. So our column creation is done with 4 columns. Let's use these columns. Use these columns. Let's type where a call is equal to this dot create column. Okay. Now that we have our columns, let's create the settings for the export to Excel. Let's name this as for settings. This is an object. It will have the configuration parameters, such as a sheet needs a workbook. First of all, we'll create a workbook. This workbook will have columns as a calls, and we will give it a hierarchy. Hierarchy level as level. Okay, we'll have these settings. Apart from these, we'll have the data source for this. That is the row binding. This is our data source. And then finally, we'll have file name. We can give any file name. Let's name this as my project ideas customer data. Okay. Now we have a configuration setting in place. So let's create our sheet, new spreadsheet with the settings. And this is a required step where as soon as the build of the sheet is done, we need to destroy the settings so that we can reuse it again and again. In this function, we will have sheet dot destroy. If you want to reuse this function again and again, we'll have to destroy the early one. Let's put it to test. We'll refresh it once more. We have customers. We have export to Excel. Let's click on export to Excel. We see that it's not responsive. Let's check what are the errors. Oh, settings is not defined. So let's check it out and fix this. We have O settings here. We forgot to declare it as well. Now let's refresh. We'll wait for the data because we want all the data. Click on export to Excel. It's not responsive still. Let's check what is the error. SAP UI export utils columns. Column configuration is not provided. Okay, we have a small mistake. In this function, we'll have to return the columns as we are expecting this to give me columns. So let's return a column. So once our data is fully loaded, we click on export to Excel. You see, we'll have this dialog pop-up coming up which says export document. Let's save this, open it up. Voila. So we have our data in an XLSX format in an Excel sheet. This is the name that we have given, and this is our sheet with all the data that we have. So friends, this is how we create an export to Excel button for a sap.m table. Thank you for watching everyone. See you next time.